Hello, everyone. This is Chala Dinkoy, CEO and founder of The Repositioning Expert, coming to you live with another Tuesday Tea Time with Chala. It is actually tea today. Yoo-hoo! Ooh, and it's warm. Gosh, I am cold. I tell you, ever since I came back from Tampa, which was last week, and it was in Canadian degrees, it was 25 degrees. I was like so warm. It was so nice. And then, of course, deep freeze back here again. And yeah, I'll be freezing even more. And next week, when I go back home to my hometown in Montreal, where it is, I think my dad said it's like minus 21, minus 25. It's really lovely. So I'm back. It was a wonderful executive roundtable as usual. I'm meeting all the ladies on sales calls. The executive roundtables are an amazing model for building business. I recommend it to everyone and teach it to my clients. So for those of you who use it, you know the power. And for those of you who want to use it, call me. I'll tell you how it is. So I'm knee deep in sales conversations and teaching people about sales conversations with corporate buyers. And that's what I do. I talk about corporate buyers. And these executive roundtables are, in fact, what we talk about. It's called the cracking the corporate code to be able to sell to corporate buyers and sell bigger contracts and to bigger corporations. Now, statistically, thank you, Perplexity. I use Perplexity and Claude for all of my content. But also, like, because I'm talking live to humans like so regularly, it's so amazing. I'm actually going to go to a huge conference, women's CEO conference in Nashville, Enterprising Women at the end of the month. So that's really exciting. And we're going to try to have an executive roundtable there. But anyway, all of that to say that the biggest issue that we talk about is when buyers say no. Why do buyers say no? And how do you change things about what you're doing so that it's not a no? So let's look at what stats are saying that they're saying no. Number one reason that buyers say no, and this is probably true for every category, every industry, every size, every type, every buyer, is that it's too expensive or we don't have a budget this year. So right on the heels of that is the statistic that 6 out of 10 buyers, corporate buyers, want to know about price in the first meeting. So first of all, why are you getting this objection that it's too expensive? One, because you're not trained properly in your sales conversation, like I was and that I teach. Two, set up the sales conversation in a very specific way to uncover their urgency. And the way you uncover urgency is you talk about the delta, meaning the difference between the future perfect of where they want to go with their business and whatever it is that they need from you that will give them by buying whatever you're selling, and the pain of where they are. And you have to, because you're selling B2B, corporations and business, you have to quantify that pain. And if that pain includes money loss, and in corporations, they speak only one language, and it's called money. And every consequence means loss of money. And you can bring it down to a personal level, even to loss of job, loss of face, loss of faith, loss of status, all the full gamut, flush out every single consequence of not buying this in the moment at that price. When you flush out the cost, the total cost to the business with the personal cost to them of this buyer of not solving this problem that they have, then you can't objectively compare what your prices are. So when you compare your prices compared to the problem, which is a huge corporate problem, it will always work because your prices will always be a fraction of what their problems are going to cost them. But if you don't build that into the discussions of your sales conversation, you're never going to be able to uncover the urgency for them because their brain won't have gone there. So you need to be trained in talking and scripting your sales conversation around their urgency, which then makes the expense and the budget much, much more prioritized because they're going to lose even more. And one of the other questions that I love to answer or ask actually is, what's going to be different if you wait to do this purchase? And how much more is that going to cost to fix this problem if you wait? Okay, so those are really, really key questions. So establish and uncover the urgency really well. And one of the other ways that we do this is not only do we flesh out what the price is, what the cost is in the first meeting. So we co-create a solution and a scope of work together, and then we give them a roundabout price. So then we have them compare that price to the pain, to the cost of the pain. All right, moving on to B2B buyer. Objection number 2 is, well, we're already working with another vendor. And Allison Cuby from Capital One, who's my sister from another mother, who has done these executive roundtables and presentations ad nauseum with me. And she's a buyer, like she's a former buyer, plus she's a current, she's not a direct buyer at Capital One, but she mans the diversity section, but also she also trains programs. She puts together training programs that train WBEs and MBEs, which are minority small business owners. And what she always says is, your biggest problem is unseating a current supplier. And that takes a lot of risk, and it takes a lot of trust on behalf of the person who's giving you the business. And it takes a lot of work to unseat someone who's already been there. And if they've been there for years, because people know them, they're a known quantity. And one of the biggest things that corporate buyers want is safety. All of the research shows that they're not willing to risk their neck, even if they love you, even if they want your service and believe it's superior, they will not risk their neck. Why should they? It's just a paycheck, right? So if they're working with another vendor, you really have to uncover what the other vendor isn't doing well. And how do you do that? You can't just go in and ask them. And sometimes you can, if you have the relationship, if you've, been in touch with them several times. One of the best ways that we do this is that we present industry issues. So why are existing solutions not working? We go and ask other people that we're not directly pitching to. We become an expert in an industry and in a pain point that we can then turn around and say, we know why our competitors are not helping you, or other solutions that you think are helping you are not helping you. So in essence, it comes down to becoming an expert in that industry and their problem. And that means you become a super elite, super niched, super elite, super well-known expert in their pain. And that's when you can speak to why they're not doing what you could do and what that's costing them and what's that's causing. And you may be a little bit off, but if you know enough about that industry and enough about the providers of the same service, you're going to be able to hit something, a shadow of something. Where there's smoke, there's fire. If the industry is suffering from it, you can be sure that for at least a percentage of it, they're suffering from it. And that's the way you go in, is you become an expert in that pain, and all of your thought leadership and your messaging is around how you're different in solving that problem that the already existing vendor is not solving. Sometimes you even open their eyes, the buyer's eyes, and educate them about what could be done better in that industry for that service that they're buying. Number 3, I'm not authorized to sign off on this. So this is completely your fault if you're having a sales conversation with the wrong people in the room, which means these are not check signers. They're not decision makers. They're not direct influencers of the purchase. They have no authority and no budget. Then it's your fault. So you need to do the work up front, and you need to make sure that you do not go into that room and you do not pitch to a room that doesn't have decision makers in it. And if they're not willing to give you that kind of meeting where the decision makers are going to be involved in the meeting, then you're just a number to them. You are just a peon. You are just a supplier, and you are not a full, what they view as a strategic partner. And your marketing is the thing that makes you perceived as a strategic partner, because you're speaking at a top level of strategy and industry pain, and they've seen you talk about industry pain, and they've seen case studies of how you've solved industry pain. You are not an order taker. You are not a supplier. You have to elevate your marketing to position you as a industry thought leader. And if you don't have an industry focus, you can't be a thought leader. If you don't have a pain focus, you can't be a thought leader. So you have to have all your ducks in a row, your strategy in place to be able to position yourself in front of them as somebody that they have to listen to, and they will give you the time of day. All right, number 4, we don't need something like this right now. And there's a statistic that goes along with it. 59%, and they did this research with tech buyers specifically, avoid vendor meetings and say no need because they don't want to meet with vendors because they don't see a need at that moment. So there's no urgency. There's also a statistic that anytime that you're pitching to someone like a room, only 5% are ready to buy in that moment. And of course, this switches wildly depending on, the industry. But if you put them on your marketing train, which is your marketing collateral, which is inviting them to roundtables, which is your weekly newsletter, which is, something that you should do and translate into your LinkedIn newsletter, which is what I do. It's lives like this where you're talking about your content and you're talking about your expertise and you're hitting their pain and their industry from all these different pain points that you're, giving advice about. It's content. I mean, people have hired me. Like, there's very few people that are live watching this. Like, I have this 0 right here where I'm watching a live, the live stream. But people binge my content before they hire me, and they give me multiple 5-figure contracts because they binge. So what I'm trying to say is, if you don't have marketing content, there's no way that you can put them on your marketing train. And if your marketing content doesn't hold together through a thread with a consistent message and pain point and the niche, then it's not going to work for you. So lastly, the last when buyers say no objection is, it's not important right now. So again, you have not uncovered the urgency. It is this lack of urgency that they're feeling. And this could be because you're not targeting the right audience. Maybe it's not the right person in that company that's feeling the pain. Maybe it's not the right industry. Maybe you need to find an industry that actually is bleeding and dying and looking for you everywhere, but they can't find you because you haven't done your homework to figure out who's the right target. So maybe it's because your messaging and your positioning is wrong. Because if you were to find the right pain message hook messaging, and if you were to find the right industry, they would want you way more and way faster, and the urgency would be there. They'd be like bleeding and crying. And I'll give you an example. The example that I always love to give, because it's such a stark example and great results, is an IT company that I worked with that was a generic IT services company. And whenever they would call or they would meet with their prospects, people would say, we don't need an IT company. But as soon as we super niche them into hospital call center hold reduction, so they sub-branded on hold rescue, because people were literally dying waiting on hold, calling hospitals, patients. And so then, their sales blew up, and they sold $800,000 and $5,000 of sales of this one service without having to buy anything or hire anyone, just because they became such a specialist in this one pain. And it's not that they didn't have healthcare IT clients before, but now they were able to sell much faster because there was a much more urgent problem. Okay. So that's what I want for you is I want you to overcome these 5 most common objections when buyers say no, because if you've got the right positioning, if you've got a strong marketing strategy, plan, message, and then you translate that into a strong meeting where you have an excellent script where you're uncovering all the urgency, and you've gotten yourself by positioning yourself as a celebrity in exactly their pain and their need in their industry, then they're going to give you all the time of the day. They're going to treat you like gold, and they're going to buy from you because they already know you, like you, trust you, respect you, and you've got the right people in the room. So go ahead and try all these things. I do them every day, all day, teach them every day. And even though more buyers say no than yes, still by statistics, you have a better chance of getting a yes if you do all these things. See you next week.